In the summer of 2007, 12 passengers prepared for a once-in-a-lifetime hot air balloon ride over British Columbia. However, a strange sound was the first sign of a hidden fault that would shortly send the balloon and its passengers skyward without their pilot. What should have been a safe and unforgettable experience would turn into a death sentence for some and a nightmare for the investigators. What was the noise, and how did it lead to the accident? This is the story of the Vancouver hot air balloon tragedy. At around 6:30 p.m. on the 24th of August 2007, 12 passengers gathered at Langley Regional Airport in Surrey on the outskirts of Vancouver, all eagerly awaiting what promised to be a scenic and memorable hot air balloon ride out over the rugged landscapes of British Columbia. Among the guests that day was 49-year-old Shannon Naxted. Soon to turn 50, the flight was an early birthday gift. Accompanying her was her husband of 31 years, August, and their two adult daughters, 28-year-old Justine and 21-year-old Gemma. Piloting the day's flight was Stephen Pennick, owner-operator of SRP Adventure Tours. With more than 2,000 flight hours under his belt, he was, to say the least, highly experienced. His balloon was an Aerostar S-77A. It was over 14 years old and had over 1,200 hours of flight. Although manufactured initially with 2 burners for lift and 3 propane cylinders in the basket, he had modified it to 3 burners to carry more passengers. Although this change was approved by the manufacturer, other modifications that were made would come under the spotlight later. As is standard before a hot air balloon flight, the passengers were given a short safety briefing. This typically includes instructions on how to raise or lower the balloon if the pilot is incapacitated, and how to exit the basket in an emergency. However, today's briefing simply assured them that ballooning was safe, and critical to the incident, according to the report by the Canadian Transportation Safety Board, didn't adequately explain how to exit the basket in an emergency. Once the briefing was completed, the pilot and ground crewman transported the passengers to the launch site near the Hazelmere Trailer Park in Surrey. Upon arrival at the launch site near the RV park, the pilot and the ground crew unpacked the balloon, attached the basket to its trailer using a nylon strap, and inflated the envelope with a large fan. At around 7 a.m, once preparations were complete, everybody climbed inside the basket. This was pilot Stephen Pennick and the 12 passengers. Connecting the line from one of the propane cylinders to the balloon's burner, Pennick opened the valve and pulled the handle for a short test burn. Suddenly, a loud pop, followed by a hissing and a loud boom, caught everyone by surprise. Moments later, a giant ball of flames erupted inside the basket. Pilot Pennick suffered severe burns, evacuated the basket, and urged his passengers to do the same. He later claimed he was knocked out of the basket and could not return due to the flames. Whatever the reason, he did not, or could not, pull the emergency vent that would have deflated the balloon, keeping it on the ground. As the passengers jumped, the lighter basket, combined with the heat from the fire filling the envelope, caused the balloon to climb with several people still on board. Reaching the end of the 30-foot nylon strap, it's seen here lifting the trailer off the ground to which it was connected. Those who jumped from this height suffered more severe injuries, some even landing on the truck that was connected to the trailer. 56-year-old Diana Rutledge told Good Morning America of her survival story. All of a sudden, my friend who was with me was screaming, "Diana, we're on fire, we're on fire." So I thought, come on Diana, this is do or die, so I jumped. I climbed up on top of the basket and I jumped. Landing on her feet, every bone in her foot was broken. Sadly though, Diana's story was far more fortunate than that of the Naxted family. Although 28-year-old Janine and her father August had successfully jumped, her mother Shannon and sister Gemma were still inside the burning basket. The nightmare would only worsen when the nylon strap, tethered to the trailer, suddenly snapped, releasing the balloon and its burning basket with the 2 women trapped inside. After climbing several more feet, the envelope deflated, sending the balloon and its basket crashing into the RV park below. On the ground at the Hazelmere RV park, the chaos was far from over. 3 motorhomes were destroyed, having caught fire, along with several other vehicles. Sadly though, the real tragedy was about to be confirmed. 49-year-old Shannon Nackstead and her 21-year-old daughter Gemma, both having never left the basket, were unfortunately found dead. All in all, 11 others had been injured, many of them serious. This included the pilot, Stephen Pennock, who suffered bodily burns along with heat injuries in both lungs. The investigation into the accident was handled by the Canadian Transportation Safety Board, or TSB for short. Investigators first turned their attention to the envelope. Had the fabric caught fire during the launch phase and caused the accident? A TSB regional examination facility came to the conclusion that the envelope was, surprisingly, largely unaffected by the fire. This meant it must have started in the basket. Interviews with the pilot and the ground crew revealed that in the moments right before the fire, they heard a popping noise followed by a hissing. The investigation team immediately turned their attention to the balloon's burners and propane cylinders. While examining the charred wreckage, investigators found that only one of the balloon's 4 propane cylinders had its valve open, meaning it was the one in use. Additionally, its fuel line that ran to the burner had been dislodged. Investigators concluded that the pop and hiss sounds heard by the pilot and ground crew were due to the fuel line disconnecting from its socket, causing pressurized propane to escape. They believed that when the pilot performed the test burn, it ignited that released propane. Although the investigators now knew the cause of the fire, they were stunned by the unapproved practices prior that made it possible. As mentioned at the start of the video, the Aerostar S77A had been manufactured with 2 burners and 3 propane cylinders. As allowed by the manufacturer, the operator, SRP Adventure Tours, had modified it to 3 burners to carry more passengers. However, along with the extra burner, a 4th propane cylinder had been added too. This was the cylinder in use at the time of the accident. This upgrade was not approved by the manufacturer nor by Transport Canada, who regulated the industry. Furthermore, neither the operator, SRP Adventure Tours, nor its engineer could show any documents regarding this installation or any other work performed during the past 14 years. Interviews with the pilot revealed that, unlike the 3 standard propane tanks whose fuel lines ran along the uprights of the basket inside a leather sleeve for protection, the 4th cylinder was connected and disconnected each flight, and the hose was coiled around itself when not in use. Investigators determined the additional daily stress was likely the reason it disconnected from the socket. Even more disturbingly though, it had no emergency shut-off valve. The pilot would need to turn the nozzle 5.5 times to shut off the propane. As this never happened, the propane continued to fuel the fire throughout the entire ordeal. Although the fire breaking out in the basket was the underlying cause of the tragedy, the final report noted escalation of the event was made possible by the lack of emergency shut-off valve and the pilot not venting the balloon to deflate it before exiting the basket. However, in fairness, it must be noted that, although the report states he evacuated without deflating it, he himself claims to have been knocked out of the basket by the fire and was unable to return. In the aftermath of the investigation, several lawsuits were filed in court. August Nackstead, husband and father of the 2 passengers who lost their lives, filed a lawsuit suing pilot Stephen Pennock, his company SRP Adventure Tours, their maintenance engineer, and several firms related to the balloon. He said he suffered severe physical injuries, including burns and fractures from jumping from the balloon, and psychological harm from witnessing the gruesome death of his wife and daughter. He questioned Pennock's competence as a pilot, the balloon's fitness to fly safely, and several deficiencies, including the propane system feeding the balloon's burners. Pilot Stephen Pennock filed a lawsuit against Aerostar and others involved in the design, manufacture, and maintenance of the balloon's components, including 5 unnamed firms that supplied parts for the burner system. In the end, all lawsuits relating to the tragedy were settled out of court, except for that of pilot Stephen Pennock's, whose case was dismissed by a judge. If you found value in today's video, I'd love it if you subscribed and joined me for the next one. To watch my video on the Albuquerque hot air balloon tragedy, you can click the link on screen. And as always, thanks for watching.